And welcome to the broadcast on this March 14th, 2025, Purim. It reminds us, say many of the Israelis, that Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran will meet their final downfall. We'll be joined by our reporter from Israel, Aharon Levarko, on the significance as they celebrate Purim this year and the middle of their battle against Hamas, Hezbollah. Now, we're also going to be joined a little bit later in about 15 minutes by Dr. Rob Lindsted, because guess what? We now have China's new quantum machine run 1 million times faster than Google's. China's new quantum machine runs 1 million times faster than Google's. And by the way, I think I played it on TV the other night. I'll play it here. Do you know the European Union, the European Central Bank? They're bragging. They're going to a digital euro. They're going to be able to track everything you do. We believe we're headed toward a Eurocentric world government. That's what I wrote in my 2016 book, The Coming Religious Reich. Reich meaning empire or kingdom. And we know that part of a one world government system is going to be according to the Bible. A one world economy, you won't be able to buy or sell unless you have the mark. A one world religion. One world religion from the New World Order will be the worship of Antichrist. First, it'll be a false global dominant church described in Revelation 17, verse 1, though the great harlot that sits on many waters. That's separate from the woman that sits on the beast. Those are two different scenes. John says, then I was carried away into the wilderness, and then I saw a woman sitting on a beast, right? That's different from verse 1 of Revelation 17. I saw the great harlot sitting on many waters. That's the global false dominant church led by the false prophet who's just been introduced in Revelation 13 in our Bible study on Sunday night, this last Sunday night. And you can watch that Bible study now still on demand at worldviewtube.com. I look forward to, I've been studying this week and some last week. I've gotten a little ahead in my study, so I won't have to do quite as much as normal, but I will spend the bulk of Saturday and Sunday studying for Sunday night. And I hope you'll join us 8 p.m. Central Sunday night as I continue in Revelation chapter 13, talking about that false prophet. Because there's a global false religious system, and I think it's largely based on pantheism. All is God. Panentheism. God is in all. The worship of nature. The worship of man. A humanism. A cosmic humanism. New Age. Which again is what my first book was on in 1990. My first documentary in 1991 on that. And I think that's where we're going. I said then in 1991, as a pretty young guy, I thought the one world religious system would largely be based on New Age, cosmic humanism. But then the Antichrist and his 10 world assistants, according to Revelation chapter 17, the middle of the chapter, turn and devour that woman and eat of her flesh and make her naked. By the way, that's not Babylon, okay? That's not what's happening to Babylon over in chapter 18. Some say, oh, that's just Babylon being burnt. No. Babylon is literally physically being burned. It's a physical, actual thing in Revelation 18. It's not spiritual talk. Revelation 18 describes Babylon on fire, being judged by God. What's going on in Revelation 17 is spiritual talk. How do you know? Well, it says that they strip her naked and eat of her flesh. So, are you telling me the Antichrist and the 10 world assistants are stripping the false dominant church naked and eating her flesh? I mean, how do you do that in a global church system, an institution, an entity, a worldview, an ideology? It's clearly spiritual talk. And they probably strip her naked as in they take everything she's got. And I'm pretty well guessing the false dominant church might have a lot of assets. A lot of, maybe those assets have already been tokenized. And if they haven't been, I think they're about to be tokenized on a ledger. Wow. Think about all the hard assets the Southern Baptist Convention has. Have you ever done a research on the Southern Baptist Convention, the largest Protestant denomination, and all the land they own? How about the Catholic Church? Take those two institutions alone, right? And by the way, the Southern Baptist Convention, I'm pretty well sure there'll be a lot of those leaders still on the planet because they've gone full on apostate at the headquarters, pretty much. I'm not talking about your individual Southern Baptist churches, some that are holding the line doctrinally, not talking about them. But the Southern Baptist Convention as a whole has gone completely apostate starting in 93 when they couldn't even condemn the occultism and Satanism of Freemasonry. And we know that the Catholic Church has gone apostate so that many Catholics don't even see this Pope, like Archbishop Vigano, don't even see this Pope as a legitimate Pope. Won't even call him the Pope. Calls him by his given name, does Archbishop Vigano, who got deflocked, by the way, for defending traditional Catholicism. He calls him Bergoglio by his given name. Says he was picked by the smoke of Satan coming up out of that smokestack, which I think we're going to see that white smoke again probably before the year is over. I don't think the Marxist Jesuit Pope Francis has longed for this world with his health. Pray he comes to know what real salvation's all about, the gospel, don't you? Because God desires that no one should perish, but all should come to repentance. I feel the same way for Pope Francis. I pray for his true salvation. But whether it's the Catholic Church as we know it today under Pope Francis, full on apostate, the Southern Baptist Convention headquarters that can't even condemn Freemasonry, all but fully pretty much apostate. Think about all the wealth between just those two institutions, right? And if you're going to have a global false dominant church and the Antichrist and his world assistants strip her naked and eat of her flesh, devour her financially. But also, what's the new religion after that? The worship of the beast, right? And we're going to see that this Sunday evening as the false prophet sets up image in the temple that speaks words of blasphemy. And we're going to really hone in on that word image, and he gives it breath. The false prophet gives it breath. What does that mean? We'll get into that. The false religious system. And I'll explain more. But here we are with clearly a one world economy, a one world religion, which will be the first one world religion, a global false church before you go to the Antichrist, a one world economy, one world religion, a one world government. Those three things. And I believe it will be Eurocentric. And the European Union, I'll play the audio, the leader of the European Central Bank says what? We're going to a digital euro, folks. They're going to track everything and even block payments and block money. Well, you think deplatforming, shadow banning, debanking has been bad under the Biden regime? Wait till it's under the regime of Antichrist. Wow. A lot to get to. Let's keep moving. Joining me now is our reporter on the ground in Israel, Aharon Levarko. Aharon, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Brannon. Happy Purim.
Thank you. Any comments, by the way, my opening monologue? Because you're right there in the heart of it in the Middle East.
Well, I think you really summed it up well, Brannon. I don't think I'd do any justice adding to that. I think you really hit it right on the head. That's what's happening. That's what we're seeing. And when this false prophet arises, let's be in the word so that we're not deceived. One of the things the Lord constantly warned us, be not deceived. Mm-hmm. And I think those that are not mature in the word, even strong believers who are not strong in the word, they may come under deception. So, yeah.
So there's an article today, Aharon. Purim. I'm saying Purim. How are you saying it?
We say Purim. The singular is pur, which means a lot. Pluralized, it's Purim.
Purim.
Correct.
Okay. Purim reminds us that Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran will meet their downfall. This is an opinion article today. Tell me about it and how this is so relevant with what your nation's facing right now.
I think the key verse that sums up what that article is saying It's when Mordecai said to Esther, and this is after they both found out that Haman had manipulated King Xerxes to sign with his signet ring that every Jew on a certain day would die in 127 provinces. When they both heard about it, they were horrified. And this is what Mordecai said to Esther. He said, if you remain silent, relief and deliverance will come. He knew, he had confidence. But then he said, but if you remain silent, you and your family will die. But who knows that maybe you have been brought into the palace for such a time as this. So, he said, if you remain silent, you're going to die. But God somehow will bring about relief and deliverance. An amazing statement. Actually, he didn't say God, because God's not even mentioned once in the book of Purim. And one of the key themes of that book is the hiddenness of God. He's not mentioned. That's why Esther, she hides her identity. Mordecai tells her not to reveal whose people she's from. She became kind of like a Trojan horse inside of the Persian parliament, so to speak. And then when it was the right time, she revealed herself, and then in a supernatural way, the whole situation got turned around. Even when the king heard that Haman was the evil man, it says he went out on the balcony and he was enraged. And when he came back, Haman was groveling at Esther's couch. And there's an ancient Jewish writing saying that perhaps the angel Gabriel pushed him right at that moment. I think it's just poetic language, but in any event, if you look at the book, the odds were so against us, and yet through individuals like Mordecai sitting at the gate of the city, overhearing an assassination plot. It was written in the oracles. Then later, when the king couldn't sleep, he just so happened to open it up at that story. And then he wanted to reward that man. Haman thought he was the man who was going to be rewarded, but the king said, go and reward Mordecai. So Haman had to take him through the streets, and he was enraged. He built the gallows, and he ended up hanging on the gallows that he built. And this is what we're talking about when it comes to Hamas, when it comes to Hezbollah, and with God's help, with the unseen God's help, and hidden people like Mordecai, like Esther. I believe God has his people, the right people at the right places. And you know what? Maybe it's people like Donald Trump, Mike Huckabee, pastors in Iran, pastors in Iraq. We don't know who they are. God does. But we are confident that relief and deliverance will come to Israel.
One of them I want to mention here, Jerusalem Post. We will serve again. 3 women who survived the Nova massacre and joined the IDF reserves. Do you know about this story, Aaron?
I do, Brannon. I read that story today. And
tell our audience about it.
Yeah, 3 young girls who were stationed on the border of Gaza, who were sitting in an office, and they came heavily under attack. Thank God they were able to survive. We know that many didn't. 1,200 died. And these girls, obviously, to some degree, suffered a shock, trauma, knowing the enormity of the day, the fear factor, and all of that. But here they are in a brave act. And this is what's instilled in the Jewish soul when they go to school, when they go on field trips to the Holocaust Memorial Museum. They go on field trips to places where Gideon fought the Midianites. And these stories are instilled into Jewish people from very young age. And then, of course, in the army, the army, part of the training in the army, They will go to some of these museums. They will go to some of these historical places, be read the biblical stories, so they know that our fathers and our forefathers and our fathers' fathers, they spilled blood, they shed blood. And then, of course, the founding of the state of Israel in 1948, their pain, the agony, the sacrifice. So having said all of that, this is what is driving these three young girls to this resilience, that they got knocked down. They got, who wasn't shattered on October the 7th and beyond, and yet they know that we're in a fight for survival. This is a battle. This is for our future generations. We don't have a choice, and we either give in to fear and let fear drive us over, or we overcome the fear and we rise up. And I'm just so proud. The nation is so proud. I mean, it's one thing if it's young men, but when we see young women and read about stories like this, it's incredible. So Thank God.
Yeah, indeed. Let's go to one more. We got Rob Lindsted with us, right, Logan? Bringing him now. All right, let's go to one more article before we bring him on. This is a really interesting article. Archaeologists find evidence of Josiah, the last king of Judah. Tell me about this.
Well, I don't know too much about that article. What I do know is Josiah, he was the last king of Judah before Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians came and destroyed Jerusalem in 586 BC. And it's written in Chronicles that he took the Ark of the Covenant and he hid it. And that's the last that we know of the Ark of the Covenant, Josiah hiding it. Now, people believe he hid it under the temple before it was destroyed. Some people say that it was found in the 1970s by Chaim Reichman, the leader of the treasures of the temple, and that it's in our hands, but we have not publicly made that known. But Josiah, he was the king of Judah, the last king of Judah that brought about a reformation. Zedekiah was actually the last one that fled from Nebuchadnezzar. He ran down a cave into Jericho. And there's actually an extra biblical stele, and it's written in ancient cuneiform that Nebuchadnezzar had him caged in like a bird. And so that's an extra biblical written document. So that strengthens the biblical account. We know that Josiah was not just a heroic, imaginative figure. He was a real king of Judah. Judah was our land. And maybe the ark that he did hide away, maybe it has been found and it is in our hands. Although I've always said, because people ask me about the ark, Brannon, I personally don't think it's that important for the rebuilding of the temple. Why? Because with Herod's temple 2,000 years ago, there was no ark. And yet our Lord and Savior, Yeshua, Jesus, he recognized that temple. He went to that temple, and he obviously recognized its authority by calling it my house shall be a house of prayer for all nations. So he recognized it even without the ark. But having said that, I think it would be exciting if we did find the Ark of the Covenant.
Absolutely. Okay, let's bring in our friend, Dr. Rob Lindsted. Dr. Lindsted, welcome aboard with our friend Aharon Levarko in Israel. How you doing, Doc?
Hello. Yep. Hello to both of you.
Great to have you with us. We have a couple articles I want to talk to you about, Dr. Lindsted, and that is China's new quantum machine runs 1 million times faster than Google's. I want you to, before I go to a video of the head of the Central Bank of Europe, European Central Bank, talking about they're going to a digital euro, which is really, I think, laying out the foundation for the mark of the beast. And you're going to see more and more regions do this. And I think we're headed toward 10 regions of the world being divided. The 10 horns, we're going to see this with 10 diadems. We've been studying that on Sunday nights, Revelation 13 and other passages. This is, we're headed toward a Eurocentric world government. I think you and I agree with that, Dr. Lindsted. tell us about this computer and how this can all play into this.
Well, what we're seeing is a dependence more and more on the computer. There's so many incredible things you can do. Just yesterday, I was visiting a university, and they were looking at how to go back and to redo aircraft. They don't need the blueprints. We can scan them, and they do what they call reverse engineering. What they can do in 3 or 4 minutes used to take, let's say, 3 to 6 months. Can you imagine taking a whole airplane? I don't care if it's a defense one, a commercial one. They can reconstruct them, and the power is incredible. We've talked on the show in the past about quantum engineering and how it tries simultaneously all these possibilities. So computing power is a big thing. There's just no way for people nowadays to keep up, even with banking, with marketing. And so everything is pushing us into the digital frame. I'm not trying to fight that. I think it's coming one way or another. But you're right. What it really does, it means that you physically don't have your money. Everything is transferred. So let's just say that we put all of our banking records on there. We put all of our technology records on there, whether they're medical, whether they're for weapons. Those are all going to be digitized. But that system is controlled somewhere by someone. The Bible makes it very clear in Revelation 13 that the person who has this control, because he has control over those that buy, sell, trade. And so I think this is a perfect setup leading to the Antichrist. And I like to look at it this way. It's history is in the shadow of what's taking place in the future.
Let's come back to that with Dr. Rob Lindsted, get some comment from Aharon on that as well. And I'll play that clip by the head of the European Central Bank when we come back as well, which I think will add some interesting insights into where we're going on a global scale. In fact, if you just go to Worldview Tube and even just hit the news icon, it'll bring you right there as well, okay? And you'll see, like, one article already from last night's TV show, border crisis over, ? Todd Bensman breaks news you won't see on corporate media. He really did. He broke some very interesting news last night with some very interesting footage, how the Mexican government's fighting the drug war, and they've built a, what do they call it? The bulldozer trail or something? They're bulldozing a trail through the mountains so that the military can go up through these mountains on the other side of the border and go after the drug smugglers. Now, why are they doing this? Because President Trump said, if you guys don't do this, we're going to be adding massive, massive tariffs, okay? So they're taking President Trump seriously. And the media is not reporting a lot of this and showing you the footage. There was exclusive footage by Todd Bensman. We showed on TV with him last night. He literally was in Mexico, had to step back over the border to set up and be with us last night. And the media is not going to show you this, folks, because they don't want you to see the victories of the Trump administration. But we show you. And there's an article about it. We also have an article on the arrest of the former president of the Philippines and how this is empowering the International Criminal Court. We also have one that's very germane to what we're talking about right now, and that is Colossus rising, Elon Musk's Memphis monster and the technocratic takeover. Right here in my backyard. And by the way, we have reached out today to all of the offices we can find of Elon Musk because I want to interview Elon Musk. I want to interview him. I want to ask him about his worldview. I want to ask him some of his positions on very key things. And I would think I will be asking him questions that no one has ever asked him before. But if I get the opportunity, I want to ask him those. And I think he'll be shocked at the questions, but I think he will, knowing what I know about watching him publicly, I don't think Elon will have any problem with the questions that I want to ask. They're not got you questions. I want to know more about Elon's worldview. Those are the kind of questions they are. And I think he'll be eager to talk about it. I don't ever see him shying away from talking about what he believes. So they're not got you questions. They're, hey, I want to know more about your worldview. What makes Elon tick? What drives Elon? Where Elon sees the world going? He did that with the World Government Summit in the United Arab Emirates. And it may be, hey, here's where things are going. It's not what Elon wants to see happen, but this is what Elon thinks is coming. I'd like to talk to him. I really would. He's right here in our backyard. Apparently, he comes to the Memphis, Tennessee area. So maybe you can pray about that, because I'd like to interview Elon. Maybe some of you wouldn't. Patrick Wood's not so sure about that. But I'm not worried. I think it'll be a great interview if we can get that done. But you'll also find, if you scroll down the page, article from my Sunday night Bible study, The Second Beast Out of the Earth, the False Prophet, and the Coming Deception. All of these are now tons of new articles we're writing every day at worldviewtimes.com. All right, we're joined again by Aharon Levarko, our reporter on the ground in Israel, brought to you by our foundation, and Dr. Rob Lindsted. His website is Bible Tip, BIBLE-TIP for Truth in Prophecy, BibleTipNow.org. Okay, so Dr. Lindsted, Aharon, here is the president, the head of the European Central Bank, okay? And this is a very interesting clip because I have it in my memory. It's not too hard to remember because it's my birthday, April 26. April 26, 2010. April 26, 2010. The then president of the European Central Bank came to America and gave a speech in New York and had one section in that speech about global governance and said that the world is going to go toward global governance with the assistance of the Bank for International Settlements. That's the Central Bank of Central Bankers. And we know the BIS out of Basel, Switzerland, is working on digital currency. Well, here we have the European Central Bank president now in 2025. It's hard to believe. 2010 to 2025. Wow, how fast it's gone. Here we have her telling us we're going to a digital euro. Listen to this, guys.
On your second point, I tend to share your views. Nature doesn't like vacuum. And we started working on the digital euro way back. Actually, when I started my term 5.5 years ago. And I'm not claiming, parentality on the digital euro because my colleague Benoit Cœuré had already committed a speech on this matter before I arrived. But I certainly carried on with that project, and subsequently Fabio Panetta on the board and then Piero Cipollone, who has replaced Fabio, have taken the lead together with a very, very good team which is focused on accelerating the pace and hopefully campaigning enough with all the stakeholders, meaning European Parliament, meaning European Council, meaning European Commission, so that we can eventually, not put to bed, but put to reality this digital euro. The deadline for us is going to be October of 25, and we are getting ready for that deadline. But we will not be able to move unless the other parties, the stakeholders, as I call them, Commission, Council, and Parliament, actually complete the legislative process, without which we will not be able to move. And I think it is critically important. And it seems to the agnostic or the skeptics, it seems to be more relevant and more of an imperative now than ever before, both on the wholesale and on the retail level, both.
All right, so what this will mean is every transaction will be tracked. What this means is that they can block your transactions. They can stop cash from coming into your account, going out of your account. They'll know where you are with each and every transaction. Not that they can do that now with your credit card, obviously, but you have the choice to use cash if you want to. But they could deny you buying something. They can penalize you. This is headed toward, I think, the mark of the beast system. Dr. Lindsted, you go first, please.
Yeah, I think when we look at digital currency, and you're right, it's coming. I don't think we can stop it, and I don't even know if we want to stop it because I think it's part of God's plan. Some of the slides, some of the pictures I showed you earlier, historical is shadowing the future, and so we've seen this being predicted by the Bible. Now we're seeing the reality of it, and I think it plays directly into the hand of the Antichrist. Here's why: when it comes to money and currency and banking, there's one part of it is monitoring, one part of it is to direct, one part is to control. They've been able to monitor, but it's always been a slow process because let's say it's been on paper. They monitor after the process is over. Direct. They went to direct. How can we direct it? We can do direct deposit. We can transfer funds electronically. But the third thing is what they're trying for, and it's what the Bible talks about the Antichrist doing, and that's to control. And so I think this completes the cycle that's going to allow them to control what we do, not just monitor, not just direct, but to control. And the Antichrist has that. That's what he wants to do, because that's how he's going to force people to take on his mark. And essentially they commit themselves to them. They accept him as their king, just the way we accept Jesus Christ as our Savior.
Let's look at a few more of these slides. Have you explain them to our radio audience? Stop Jewish sacrifices and set up an idol in the temple. We're headed, that's right where we're going on Sunday night, Dr. Lindsted, Revelation 13. That's where we're picking it up in the middle of the chapter.
See, in the book of Daniel, it's given a historical account, of Epiphanes and Antiochus Epiphanes and the generals of Alexander the Great. And all of those were foreshadowing of the Antichrist. Later in the book of Daniel, in like verse 41 or 43, I think, they even talk about the willful king. But again, he stops short of all that the Antichrist does in Revelation 13. So I think God was giving us these pictures historically so that when the future comes, we understand them. Even the report that Aharon was giving us about the history lessons in the Ark. When we see how accurate the Bible is, we say, okay, it was accurate in the past. What it says about the kings, Daniel wrote this in, let's say, 500 BC. He was writing about kings that would live in 200 BC. It's accurate to the detail. So if it was accurate in the past, we can trust it when it comes to predicting the future. So that's why I like to call it history in the shadow of what's taking place in the present, what's taking place in the future. So this type of Antichrist, well, he persecuted people. He stopped the sacrifice. He exalted himself in the temple. He wants to control exactly the pattern, but each part of this goes a step further than the historical part. And I think we're just marching along. This fits in so well with the subject we're talking about today.
It really does, doesn't it? And of course, we talked about this in our series, Escaping to Petra, which is over in Jordan. And I like what Arnold Fruchtenbaum has laid out. It seems to be that this part of the empire of Antichrist has been excluded. So they're actually able to run to Jordan, into the wilderness, into the mountains for protection. What are your thoughts on this, Aharon?
Dr. Bob first, and then I've got
Go ahead, Dr. Rob.
Dr. Rob, yeah.
Okay. What's interesting, if you go to Revelation chapter 12, the chapter that you were just finishing up on your Bible study, and it talks about fleeing to the wilderness. There's no doubt that most of us think that that's probably a description of Petra. Okay, you go to Daniel chapter 11, and it speaks of the glorious land. That's the land of Israel. And then it talks about how that they will escape, and it mentions to Edom, to Moab, and to Ammon. Well, those are the three divisions of Jordan. And so here again is the historical foreshadowing the present and the future. And you just see these things pointed out, and you say, wow, the Bible is so consistent. To me, it's one of the great proofs that the Bible is inspired by God. One writer couldn't do this. It would take a God to do this. And so when we see what's repeated in the book, that's 2,500 years ago. It's coming true today.
2,500 years ago and is coming true today. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, the wonders of biblical prophecy, the high percentage, I think it's about 85% of biblical prophecy has already been fulfilled. So what are the chances of the rest being fulfilled? Very high. So, and we're seeing it fulfilled, the return of the Jewish people. That's Ezekiel 37. I will gather, you back in the dead bones. I will raise you up. You'll become a strong army. And then, of course, after 37 is 38, 39. What's next? What's happening in our midst? But this high tech and the chip and all of that, the scripture says no one will be able to buy or sell without this mark. And the speed of it happening is quite shocking. And I think what really scares me the most is sometimes I'll be at a checkout in a supermarket and, they've got my information and I'll quip and I'll make a joke by saying, soon we're all going to have a chip under our skin, just jokingly to hear people's comments. And what shocks me is some people haven't got a clue. They are so distracted, they don't know what's coming. And I just wonder, what is the impact going to be on these kind of people that are just going to get swept up into the system? They're going to think that it's for their good. They're going to think it's for their security. And so, like I said before, being in the Word, knowing what the Word says, will equip us and will prepare us for what lies ahead.
Absolutely. Speaking of what lies ahead, let's go back to this, Dr. Lindsted. We have other parallels, the deception by peace, treasures, Libyans, Ethiopians, a glorious high mountain. Speak to this, please.
It's interesting because if you go to let's say, a combination of Daniel 8, Daniel 9, but particularly Daniel 11, it goes through the whole history, several hundred years of history. And you'll find that the willful king, how does he make his strides? Well, he does deception by peace. That's what the Antichrist is going to do. He's going to confirm a peace treaty. But the truth is, he's deceiving people. The word deceive is used in Thessalonians. It's used in Matthew. It's used in Revelation. He's the master of deception. That's what Satan does. And then he comes for treasures. Ezekiel 38 says, that Russia, Turkey, Iran, the nations following Russia, they're going to come for treasures. And it's interesting because here it says Libya will come. Libya, why? Well, we just watched Russia make a situation with Libya where they're actually putting their arms there, their missiles there now. And so one by one, but look at the glorious mountain. Daniel chapter 11, there it is, the glorious mountain. I think that's the Temple Mount. And even today, there was a news article about the Temple Mount. We're in the middle of Ramadan, and Aharon was speaking of the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin today called the people of Israel back. And then they also said it's necessary for us to make sure that as more and more Jews are coming back, we have a right to the Temple Mount. Look, they're missing. Yeah, I mean, we're just watching this step by step, and I think God is doing this so that we'll say the Bible is important to study.
Aharon, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely, we're sitting back watching it unfold. The pieces of the puzzle, the chess pieces, they're maneuvering, they're making their moves. We've talked about this the other day, the three of us. The potentially next pope could be the Pope, Pizzaria from Jerusalem. What is his role going to be in all of this? I think they're certainly exciting days to live in, and these are good ways of evangelizing people, trying to prove that there is a God by going to biblical prophecy and saying, "Hey, there's a piece of land that was promised 3,000 and something years ago look what's happening. Look at these prophecies being fulfilled. I actually think it's a great springboard for evangelism.
Absolutely. I mean, this time of trouble, we were in it in our last chapter. We're in chapter 13 now, but Revelation 12, we dealt with this attack on the Jews, right? This is also discussed in Daniel chapter 12, right, Dr. Lindsted?
Yeah, it begins with the time of trouble. And then in Daniel 12, it says, okay, we're going to seal up the book until the time of the end. When's the time of the end? When there's going to be travel increase and when there's going to be technology increase. Wow, you couldn't have a better description of what's taking place today than travel increase, technology increase. And so we just see the Bible unfolding before our eyes.
Mm-hmm. And isn't it, gentlemen, as we get ready to wrap here, sad, but also yet expected, that there are so few outlets like Worldview 2, VCY America. There are so few outlets. I mean, Fox News isn't going to tell you this. Newsmax is not going to tell you this. You know, none of these other outlets are going to explain to you what's happening and explain it through the Bible, much less explain it prophetically. You first, Dr. Lindsted?
Brannon, I don't know if we have time, but I sent a couple things there on the conference that's going to take place with Russia, Iran, and China. Maybe we can flash that up just for a minute because this is so significant. This weekend, this conference will take place. And all of those are players that the Bible mentions will be in the end time. What's so unusual is that here they are, they're talking about nuclear power. Okay, always up until now, Iran has said, no, we want it for peaceful reasons. Well, we know that really they keep threatening Israel, they keep threatening the United States. And so they're meeting together. First meeting they've ever had that they've openly said is on nuclear power. All right? It's certainly for destruction. So we see these three partners coming together. But what's interesting is the day before, Russia said that because Iran refused the negotiations with President Trump, Russia said, okay, we would like to be the mediator between Trump and Ukraine. One day later, he's announcing that he's part of a summit, and they're talking about China, Russia, and Ukraine, not Ukraine, Iran, and meeting together on how to bring their nuclear power together against the world.
Wow. Isn't that something?
This is Bible prophecy, folks.
Hold right there, gentlemen. That's our broadcast here for now. Hey, stay tuned for Crosstalk. Thanks for listening. Hope you'll join us for Bible study Sunday night. Take care.
This has been...
And we're going to come back here to WROS out of Jacksonville, Florida, and Worldview Tube. Let's pick it back up, gentlemen. Wow, this is Bible prophecy being fulfilled because it seems to fit with this Gog-Magog scenario, does it not, Aaron?
It does. And, you know, as Dr. Rob was saying what he was saying, my mind thought of today's celebration, Purim. Remember, Haman built a gallows to hang Mordecai on it. And I just wonder, and let's not forget another big theme in the book of Purim is that God allows evil to rise up. Completely out of the blue, Haman rose up all because Mordecai wouldn't bow down at his feet and kiss his ring. So this evil rose up and God allowed it. He's hidden. He's nowhere to be seen in the book. But like I said before, Haman ended up hanging on those gallows. And I wonder, gentlemen, whether God is not going to allow some kind of formulation of some nuclear weapon or power, and maybe it's going to end up being turned back on the Iranians. I don't know, but all I know is, like Mordecai said, relief and deliverance will come. And it was Haman's wife. Remember what she said. She said, Mordecai is a Jew, and you've tried to stand against him, in whom your fall has already begun. She knew that he was fighting the wrong fight. So we gotta just keep our faith in God, that he's a covenant keeping God, and he's not going to allow Israel to be wiped off the map, and hopefully no other nation get wiped off the map as well. But certainly the war of Gog and Magog, these nations coming together, that's enough to scare you. You know?
Well, look at this headline. Iran and Russia join forces to produce semiconductors. Russian and Iran technology companies will work together on technological developments and meet the demand for chips in both countries. I mean, the more you study like Iran Observer on social media, the more articles keep popping up what these guys are up to. They're working very, very closely together, Dr. Lindsted.
Yeah, and if you were to ask somebody 30 years ago, do you think you'll see Iran and Russia work together? They say, well, they never have in the past. But we watch Russia be destroyed practically. And I remember my friend saying, you kept saying that Russia was going to be a big thing in the end days. I said, well, God's not done. And I think the story of Esther and Mordecai and how God, here was their faith. They put their faith in God, and like Aaron said, a covenant-keeping God. And that's the lesson it gives me. You can either worry or you can trust God. And we might as well trust God, because worrying is not going to solve the problem. But God will solve the problem. And when he does it, he always does it in such a way that glory comes to him. And I think that was the story in Esther that's so great.
And Dr. Lindsted, what excites me is that the three of us and all of the listeners that are watching and listening, we get to be here. I mean, what an opportunity that we've been given to be here on the front row, and as broadcasters, as ministers, as reporters. I mean, it's like, I'm going to choose Aaron and Brannon and Dr. Lindsted. I'm going to save these guys. I'm going to save their souls for a time when I want them to be born. I'm going to choose specifically when they're born, where they're born, and then I'm going to providentially make sure that these three guys end up knowing each other, working together, not to mention all the other people we work with, because I need some people. I want to have some people, not that God needs any of us, but I want to have some people that will be out there talking about these issues at this time, and these guys are going to be in the front line. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm blown away. And if someone were to say to me, Brandon, you could be the governor of Tennessee tomorrow, if I'll just make that happen, I would say, no, thank you. Why would I want that job? God bless those who do. Why would I want that job? I have the best job in the world reporting on things that have massive eternal value versus squabbling with members of the House and Senate in Nashville, right? I mean, I'm sorry. That would be a step down in my opinion. Closing comment, gentlemen?
Well, it reminds me of the early apostles when they said, we cannot but speak of the things that we have seen and heard. And it's a passion. It's God's word. We're talking centered around God's word. And what greater reality in life than to share it and to be a proclaimer of it. So
10 seconds, Dr. Lindsted.
Yeah, if you just watch news, there's no hope.
Yeah.
If you watch news through the biblical lens, there's every hope.
Yeah. Well said. Great way to conclude. Hope and excitement, because we see what it's all building to.
Happy Purim.
Same to you, Aaron. Hope and excitement, because I'm ready to watch a lot of this stuff unfold. Boy, it's getting good now, folks. All right, worldviewfoundation.com. We need your support to keep it going. Worldviewfoundation.com. Take care.